you?
Good. Looking over the video of teaching, I think you did a really good job. What do you think, how do you think the lesson went?
I think it went well, and the reason why I say that is because he received 80% on his questioning, answering inference questioning, and I was looking for 75%, so he scored 5% higher than I expected.
Okay. Did you have, did he know ahead of time that he was that was the criteria for him, was to answer at least 75% of the questions?
I didn't tell him that.
Okay, so he didn't know. Okay. What did you use? Did you have a guideline to determine whether the answer was correct or not? Did you have the questions ahead of time? How did you work the situation for that?
Yeah, so I thought all that through, and as I was writing the lesson plan, I had included basically what a proper response would be.
Okay. So the objective was to understand ideas evoked and or implied by the passage, which will also support his ability to infer and support implicit comprehension questions. So for his ability to infer, did you do a lesson prior to this, or was this the first time that he had questioning, this type of questioning for comprehension?
Well, I based the objective on the original testing that we did, the critical reading inventory, and that's where through that reading and answering, I understood that he needs support in being able to infer meaning. So it wasn't the first time, that's the original time, the first time that we had done inference questions, and since then in every unit I've done some types of those questions.
Okay, so for this lesson then, you kind of just jumped into the closed, I noticed the closed read, and then did the inferential question there. Did you do background knowledge about that before, or?
Well, I did background knowledge on the book, and then well, in the before reading activity, he read the passages, and then the second time when he read them, I stopped and asked him the question. Okay.
Why do you think, I know that was really good that he met the criteria and actually did better than what you had thought. What do you think you did that helped him meet the goal of 80%?
I think the strategy, a close read, is what helped him, because in the close read he read it once as just the passage, and then we started at the beginning of the book, so there were 4 different passages and he read them each once, and then on the second reading he's reading it for a second time.
And so that was when, and that's what I saw, that was when you two were, when you took a turn reading and then it was his turn to read, correct? Because what I saw in the lesson was he read it first prior to, so that he can become familiar, which what I thought was a really good idea, so that when it was his turn to read, when he did the share reading, he kind of, wasn't caught off guard, wasn't sure, he was able to preview it, I guess you could say, before he read. So I thought that was a really good skill. So then the first time he became familiar with it, and then you did the shared reading, and that's when he read.
Yeah, and maybe at that point he's seen it for the second time, so he's not struggling with any kind of fluency, not that he normally would anyway. But he's seen everything for the second time. He read it once in isolation, and then in the context of what we've read so far, he's able to make even better understanding.
Okay. After looking at the lesson plan and watching the video, it seemed that you pretty much followed the lesson plan in the order that you'd wanted to. Was there anything that needed to be fixed, or did you have to change anything based on his reaction to anything? Like, was he stuck, I guess, was he kind of like stuck on anything where you thought, oh, wow, I didn't know that this was going to come up, let's, talk about this first and then go back?
No, I didn't hesitate with anything. The only thing that I changed was beforehand I used Post-its instead of highlighting tape, but that didn't interfere with the lesson at all. And he was still able, maybe even Post-its were better because I had them numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, which corresponded with the questions.
Let's see. So do you think, would this be a lesson that you would teach again? Or if you had to fix something about it, what would you fix?
Well,
or change, I guess you could say.
I would definitely use the close read strategy again.
I think that was a good strategy. It worked well with him.
Yeah, and a lot of times kids are hesitant to reread something, but sometimes they have to, many times they have to, especially as they get older and the content becomes harder. if there's anything that I would change is, I never feel like there's enough time. And he likes to talk about books, which is a great thing, or what he's reading. And at the same time, I don't hurry him along, but inside I'm like, okay, we gotta keep on going so we get all this stuff in that we have to do, accomplished. So, I think I would like help now and in the future with time management. Maybe that's something that we can talk about in our next.
That was gonna be a question. Why do you think, like you said, that you want to get all this stuff in? Why do you think that you're not going to have enough time?
He wants to talk about the books.
Okay.
And that's not a bad thing, but at the same time I want to keep him on task. If he's not staying on task, then that would interfere with his learning in the classroom.
Is the things that he wants to talk about, is he sharing personal experiences that relate to
He's
the book, or is he kind of going off?
No, he's making connections to text. So
the conversation, I mean, it's not, I could see if he was kind of going off topic or whatever, but at least he is making conversations about the book, so that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think in the tutoring session, like a summer tutoring session, that's great, but we still have limited time, and then of course you kind of want to reinforce the behaviors that he needs to be in the classroom, because he needs to stay on task in the classroom for the teacher. Right.
I noticed a couple of the behaviors and things that I noticed. The activating prior knowledge was a good thing. He seemed to be not so focused in the very beginning when you first started the lesson, when you gave him the book to read, that was fine. And then when you started reading, he kind of struggled with the focusing. Is that something you notice all the time, or was it just maybe perhaps that day? Or what are some things that you could do to help him kind of be focused as soon as you start?
So if I was reading aloud, I could ask him to be the page turner maybe, so then I know that he's looking at the text as well. And the reason why we were doing shared reading is because the Lexile level was adult read material, but at the same time I wanted him to read, and it was in the 3rd grade level. So next time I'll let him turn the pages.
I thought that the shared read was a good idea, especially, like I said, I noticed he struggled in the beginning with kind of staying on task, where that activity is good for somebody who has, so that they're forced to kind of follow along. And then I think once you started, he realized his part was coming. It was, he focused, he paid attention, did what he had to do. I think you also did, I'm going to, if it's okay with you, notice a couple things that you did that were really well. You did a great job reading with expression. I took notes on that. You're very animated, which is good because, you don't want them to think it's boring. So that was a good thing. And also the way that the decoding strategy that you had used for the word assorted, it was a word, you came across the word and he didn't know what it was. Where you took turns, you read the first part, he read, and then you read to help him decode, which I thought was a really good strategy that I would like to incorporate into my tutoring. So I thought you did a really great job with that. I noticed that you asked different types of questions throughout the comprehension. Did he have a chance to read the questions prior, or how did that work? Like the questions that you were stopping and asking as you were reading, did he have access to those prior to?
No.
Okay. Do you think that's something maybe would be a good idea for maybe a future lesson, so that he knows kind of what he's looking for? Or do you think the type of student that he is, you need to ask as you're going?
I don't think it would hurt to give him the questions ahead of time.
Okay.
I think that if possibly if he had them in front of him at the same time that the book was in front of him, but they might become a distraction. But I think sometimes the kids understand better the purpose of the activity if they know, and they can look for what it is that they'll be reading. So
and even maybe possibly, well, and you know what, even possibly maybe saying, like, here's a couple, maybe not necessarily all the questions, maybe show them 3 and say, listen, these are, 3 of the questions that we're going to talk about after, just read them over quickly, and if you come across them when we're reading, you can point them out, notice it, and then we can answer them.
Yeah.
So you're not really exposing him to all the questions, and you're only showing them prior to reading, so he doesn't have access to them while he's reading. So at least maybe in the back of his mind, he can at least say, okay, I think that was one of the questions, and kind of keep that information in his head.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
You're welcome. I saw the great idea having them read periodically. So I think you did a really good job. The lesson was very well planned. You had enough material. There really wasn't any downtime. And your skill or your focus of the comprehension monitoring, like I said, I think it went really well. The strategies worked well. He seemed to be engaged with the lesson once it had already started, when you had started reading and he knew it was going to be his turn. Do you have any questions, or is there anything that I can help you with, maybe if you choose to do a similar lesson in the future?
I think the next time that we meet, I would like to talk to you about like time management.
Okay, that's one of the things. It's hard because you don't know. I found myself doing the same thing when in my tutoring session, I kind of overplanned, and then we didn't have time to do the writing yesterday, so then I had to incorporate the writing today, which kind of threw off today's lesson. So it's kind of hard because you don't know how much time something's going to take. And like you said, he was sharing experiences for the book, which is a good thing, and you don't want to interrupt that and kind of cut him off because it's related to what you're doing. So we can definitely talk about that. That's something, that's important, and I think, we can address that in the next session.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you. Good job.
Yeah, thanks.